Hello, everyone. Welcome to Achieving Success with Olivia Atkin. I am your host, Olivia Atkin. Each week, we will discuss the roadmap of achieving your personal and professional success. We give you real-life stories on growing personally and professionally to achieve your life and career goals with the help of some top-notch guests. Today, we are speaking with Melissa Rubin. Melissa is a real estate advisor at Compass and a trusted partner for Fortune 500 executives, elite medical professionals, entertainment celebrities, and international investors. Known for her concierge approach, Melissa ensures smooth and highly personalized transactions for clients, handling sensitive cases like high-profile divorces and estate sales with empathy and professionalism. With deep knowledge of South Florida market, she keeps clients informed on the latest trends. Originally from Montreal, Melissa's 16-year background in fashion lends her unique style and cultural insights that enhance her work with global clients. Beyond real estate, she serves as a board member of Mount Sinai Medical Center Foundation and the Miami Beach Chamber of Commerce, and she makes donations to clients' charities of choice upon closing transactions. She is also the author of an essential playbook, Winning Real Estate Tips During Divorce, and a recipient of the Miami Beach Chamber's Most Innovative Marketing Award. You can find Melissa on LinkedIn by searching Melissa Jane Rubin or by going to her website, mjrgroup.com, or by emailing her at melissaj@compass.com. Hello, Melissa. It's fantastic having you on the show today.
Olivia, thank you so much for having me today. I'm so happy.
I'm so excited because you have such a unique background that drives you to real estate and a passion in building a company and a foundation that gives back to the community in so many different ways. And I am so excited to dive into all of that. But to start off the show, can you tell me what success means and looks like to Melissa Rubin?
It's interesting because it's not about money. And that's what a lot of people think of when they think of success. Success is being a good human being to me, giving back to the community, making sure people are happy and doing whatever I can to enhance it and give value to another human being. That's what success looks like for me.
Melissa, I want to dive into that a little bit because I think it's so important for all of us to realize that what we do every day shouldn't be driven by money. It should really be driven by the impact we want to make in this world and how we want to do that. And one of the things I mentioned in that introduction is that you work with people sometimes in the real estate space during some of the most challenging times in their lives, whether it's due to someone passing away, someone, going through a divorce. What makes you want to work with individuals during those hardest times? Because it can sometimes be such a life-changing moment.
Yeah, myself, I went through a contested divorce, just like War of the Roses. And I thought if I could make a difference in another human being who's going through the same situation with compassion, empathy, and also knowledge, because selling a property during a marital breakup is different, and there are different nuances, and we have to know that to make sure that both parties are protected and to be able to communicate with two people that may no longer want to communicate with each other. So it's very rewarding to see how I can help them going through this time with my background in that. And then with working with seniors, which is a new passion, because again, people might overlook them, and yet they have so much knowledge and they need help, and to be able to work with them to make a difference in their lives. Ultimately, that's the gift for me.
And I want to go back to people getting a divorce. As you mentioned, you went through a difficult divorce, and trying to navigate that can be so challenging with the added stress of where you're going to live, as you said, dealing with people who might not want to communicate with each other. How do you navigate that space, and why do you think it takes a unique individual to really be able to deliver the best service and build relationships with clients when there's that added stressor in the project.
I mean, ultimately, every person who's moving or doing something major in their lives, they each have their own reasons, and uncovering what those reasons are can create a much stronger relationship. And what I find many times is that both spouses may not know what their financial situation is. And it's very scary for that person that might not know about it. And to be able to just walk through and ask the right questions so they can ask the right questions and help put a team together to make sure that both parties are protected, but especially the one that just might not have the knowledge.
Knowledge is so important. And I think it's one of the things that we all sometimes take for granted. We think we know everything, or we know we don't, but we don't know the right questions to ask. So, as a realtor yourself, how do you make sure that the right questions get asked so you have the answers you need to be able to provide the best service and sell them the right home and make sure their home is sold properly?
We look at all aspects of their lives, from financial to goals and objectives to children to schools to anything that's very important with them to make sure. And oftentimes it has nothing to do with real estate, but being a trusted advisor with the support of incredible people in my team to be able to fulfill whatever their dreams might be at that particular moment. And that's how, and each party has different dreams, and understanding that and asking them, I mean, and listening. The most important is listening to somebody else so that you can then absorb to know what we have to do next.
I recently went through a move. I did not buy a house, but ended up renting a house. And for me, being able to not go to where I was relocating to and see the area and see what I needed, and also not knowing what the 2 years, for example, I'm here in Alaska for 2 years, what that time or what I would be doing would look like. How do you try to navigate with someone that aspect of the unknown where they might not know what those
Sure.
dreams are because there's so many different moving pieces?
We often talk about like what is the person's life look like where they are. In Miami, we do a lot of relocation or second and third home purchases and leases as well, and understanding the things that are most important to you. You might want walkability. You might want to be close to schools. You may want to have walkability to your grocery store. You might want to be 30 minutes from your office. All of those things, and like I try to understand the type of property that a person is living in now. Do they like one or two stories? Do they like new? What makes something feel at home? And from there, I then could just give them options for them to choose and what's important about that area and what is not, and for them to choose.
And I love how you bring up having options, because when you get a few different options, we tend to get clarity out of that as well, which could help the whole situation of there might be benefits to one property over another that we didn't even think about that go into decision making. As you said, you do a lot of second or third home buying or rentals and relocations. So, how do you work with clients and how do you navigate the space of working with clients that might not have the time to come to your office or go on site
Sure.
to see different homes to make sure you're advocating for them in the best way and giving them all the information and really giving them everything they need?
And that's what we do a lot actually with relocation. Sometimes they don't even see the property before we lease it or we purchase it. But really to share when we create a collection of properties for people to review, I will put in my comments of things that I think they would like and maybe something they wouldn't like so that they can see why I'm doing it. And then it's a communication that's back and forth about what they like, what they don't like, about the area. And then from there we move forward. But I never am defending the market. I'm always defending the client and making sure their needs are number one.
And I think what you just brought up is so important. You're defending the client and not the market. A lot of different realtors, it, I've noticed, are getting into this space where they're starting to defend the market. They want to make the cash now. They're not looking at the long term relationships and the potential there and that own reputation in the moment. They're like, okay, I just want to get this house off my list to bring in more sales. Why is looking at and defending the client for you so important versus some of the realtors that are out there who are doing the opposite? And what advice would, from your experience, you give on that approach?
It's a client. I don't think anybody wants to be sold on anything. I think it just doesn't feel good. And I feel people know when you're not genuinely interested in them. And we always will say to someone, we don't think this is the right opportunity, or we think that we can do it for a different price. Let's wait a little bit and let's watch them. And when somebody knows and believes that you're working for them, they trust you. And then you really become a trusted advisor for them rather than a transaction. And we're not transactional, our team. We are really people driven across the country.
And that's one thing I love about how you operate is putting the people first because you're right. I've gotten approached on many different things and I'm always like I could sniff it out in 3 minutes. And I'm like the the individuals who just want to hard sell me, I'm like even if you were offering me the right service, I'm done. I don't want to work with you. Like if you're not willing to take the time to listen to what I'm asking you, then it's not, I don't want to give you my money in any sense of the word. And I'm not going to trust you with it. And I've seen that where people enter into a contract or into a service, and I'm going, wait, did they even ask you questions that made you feel connected to that person and being heard and validated? Or were they checking the box? And then quickly they're like, when the frustrations sit in, they go, oh, wait, they were really just checking the box because they're not hearing anything I'm saying. And I think that's so important to be able to say, I hear you, I validate you, and let's figure
Yeah.
this out.
We never actually, sometimes you'll hear people say that client is so difficult. And when you say things like that, you're talking, it's about you, not about the client. There's always multiple ways to do things, and thinking outside the box to be able to please them with what they want to do, as opposed to saying they're difficult, is something we never do. We always strive to please.
When you have someone who, as in some senses of the word, you're not pleasing, how do you try to figure out without and maybe you do have a direct conversation with them, but without having that conversation like this isn't working, why is there this disconnect? How do you try to figure out what is going to please them?
It's a great question. So in 2020, I met a gentleman, and he just wanted to write offers at 30 cents on the dollar. And I was writing all these offers knowing that we probably wouldn't achieve it, but this is what he wanted. And finally I said to him, I know exactly what you want. When I'm able to achieve it, I'm going to send it to you. Your time is more valuable. It's always about them. And from that point on, we did find properties, but it's 60 cents on the dollar rather than 30 cents on the dollar because he wanted deals. That was his thing. So I would never defend the market. I would always speak to him in the deal terminology. This is why, this is what the owner paid. This one might be distressed. We can get a deal. And understanding his languaging, he since then bought 8 properties from me. So
And I think that that's an important aspect of building relationships and signing clients is understanding the language they want. I'm very much an individual that's like, give me the information. Just give me the information so I can make the right choice. And I want that information in front of me. If you can't tell me, what it looks like or the dollar amounts, like it could sound amazing, right? But if I don't hear that dollar amount personally, I'm like, how will I even know if it's in my budget or not, or what this long term could look like, right? Financially. So I'm very much of like, give me everything, but also make sure you're telling me every aspect of it. Don't hide it from me, be transparent, and then I can do it. And I know other people that are like, just give me all of it, right? I don't need the dollar amount. I just want to know the good parts of it. And if it touched my heartstrings, then we go from there. And so, like you said, dealing with different people and different people's languages and how they perceive the information and time as well. What is the time that someone has to go over this? What parts of the day might be better? Or key to leveraging returns and building those relationships so that you continue to get referrals or continued sales like you said from one individual. Because if what I say is you start having, if one person has a really bad experience, that will stick with them way longer than the positive experience. And you don't want that negative experience for them to hinder your potential relationships with other people either. For you, how do you keep with the ever evolving real estate? And, right now, real estate has been a hot topic because of the market recently, because of NARS. How, with that ever evolving real estate, especially in South Florida, how have you leveraged your expertise where other people might be falling short? And how do you keep up with trends?
I read a lot, and I have an amazing business coach where we talk about that also. So those are two things that I do, and every year I always do some type of education to be better, and we always have tons of market reports from our company, which is fantastic. But we're often asked, how is the market? And you can't answer on a generalization because every pocket is going to be different. So the question is really understanding where does that come from when people ask you, and then the response to respond to what they want to hear rather than that. But education, education, education. And I think experience also has made a huge difference.
You bring up the aspect of education, which I think a lot of individuals think they could get to one spot and then they've reached the top of that journey and now they're there and they don't need to keep growing. Why is the education piece something that you're always doing and making sure you're building that into your schedule? And how do you build that into your schedule?
It's If we don't grow, we become obsolete. And especially, I think as we get older and our clients are going to be Gen Z and millennials, and we have to be on top of understanding what's important to them, which is very different than what may be important to myself or some other clients. So we can't become obsolete. And I just keep learning. I keep learning from my peers. I keep learning from the Gen Zs that are in the business, what's important to them and the languaging. And we plan accordingly, actually, where sustainability is very important to this generation. We want to make sure that we know and we show them properties and speak that language. And I time block a lot of my days to make sure that I can cover what I need to cover, whether it's outreach to friends and colleagues and our prospective clients and future clients. I time block everything, and I always make sure that I have an education every quarter and that I'm time blocking during the day to make sure that my outreach is good. And I mean, I just continue doing like that, but it's purposeful. It's not ready, fire, aim.
Mhm. And I love that because it demonstrates the respect and diligence that you have for your own time, but everyone else's time, and making sure, like you said, it's not just a fire in, get it done, check it off the list, but it's done in an aspect where it's purposeful. It's okay, we're gonna do this. I love time blocking. I have the running joke. I write everything down in my calendar, every task, so that this way I can look, and if things pivot in the day as well, if something changes, I could go, okay, this is going to take me X amount of time. Could I get this done with purpose and with impact that I want to get this task done in that time, so that when things do have to pivot or change in the day, because in all reality, there's always something that changes in
100%.
in days, I could still use the time wisely. And I think time blocking really allows you to say, okay, this is how much time I need for things. Make sure you're not getting overwhelmed with work either and losing sight of certain things you have to do. But it also gives you understanding of, if things change, how where you can insert different parts of your daily routine into those blocks. And one thing you mentioned a little farther back as well that I want to touch on is you have a coach. And I think a lot of people think, okay, as I'm growing, I need to have a coach. But once I get to the top of my game, I don't need a coach. You're definitely at the top of your game and the top of the industry. So for you, why is it important to have a coach and work with a coach?
To keep growing, to keep being effective, and and they know so much more than me. So as long as and and as they're evolving, then I'm evolving. And it's like in anything else. If you need therapy, we go for therapy. If And it's really important, and it's really fun too, to know that you can continue growing and continue learning. I highly recommend it, and wherever you are in your career and whatever career you have.
I think, there's certain things, and you look at, I'll use this as an example, therapy 5, 10 years ago, and it was more taboo, right? You mentioned you have a therapist, and I say this as my mother is a therapist, so trust me, I grew up. But it was one of those things where if you vocalized, "Hey, I'm going to therapy," it was like, "Oh, you're going to therapy," and now it's such a regular thing that it's amazing how times change and perspectives on those things change. And just like coaching, I think, right now it's in this stage where sometimes people still see it as like, oh, well, why do you need a coach? Right? Or like, why are you doing that? But as you said, it gives you the ability to bounce ideas off of, evolve. And I think we all need to continuously evolve, because the one constant thing is life is change. If you're not ready for change, you're going to get left behind as well.
You're so 100% right. And I think we have to really be effective, and we have to be on top of whatever trends in life are happening to make a difference to another person.
For you, as you're learning different things and evolving yourself, how do you integrate that into work with your clients, into running your business, into your personal life?
I Whatever I'm learning, I try to share with my team. And whether that's in a one-on-one meeting or in or just an email, just saying like, have you thought of this? And I never want to be in the approach, you must do it, because people have to welcome, and it has to be the right time in their lives to want to absorb and to do new things. So I'm always putting it back on them and trying to just teach. And I do it. And if I think it's really interesting, then I'll create like a blog post about it and share it with clients, or I'll call clients and tell them, have you seen this? Have you heard of it? And just to really make sure that you're relevant, right? Because so many people are relevant. And if you're not, then you're going to be bypassed.
And I think too, as you brought up, the importance of sharing the information. Some people think, okay, well, I learned this and it sets me apart, so I don't want to share it. Whereas your approach is, let me share it with everyone, because then I can help others as well do the best they can. Why would you rather share the knowledge that you're gaining daily from experiences you have or things you've read or research you've done, compared to just being like, okay, this is just all going to set me apart from everyone else. I'm going to keep it
Or
to myself.
I think one is a scarcity mindset and one is an abundance mindset. And I think I personally would like to live in the abundance mindset, to know that that I can share and make people better. if it's something that a colleague can learn, then it makes us all better at our careers and elevates us. And if it's something that is, I think a client may be interested in, then it adds value to them. And no, I always share. I think it's really important. Makes me feel good.
And it's something that when you can help someone else, that it always comes back, right? If you're willing to help someone else when they're in need or just share a little bit of information, that can go tenfold compared to holding it to yourself. For you, as you're running your day to day and making sure you're getting clients, how do you also manage the stressors of running a business and managing a team?
I I actually every day have personal goals and professional goals. And I try and obviously, as you say, things pivot, but I try to do the best to manage both and to be there to support the team, both the team in Miami and the team across the country, to support and be available. And that's really important, to be available, to know that somebody is there for a person, just like I would want my coach to be available for me if I had something that was pressing. And I try to be available for them, for my family, for my friends, checking in, saying, wishing a happy birthday, a happy anniversary, just doing the things that make a difference to another person.
And that's one thing I do as well, is like every birthday, holidays, I send a text to people in my community. I'm like, hey, happy birthday, happy anniversary. Or I try to remember one thing we talked about last and bring it up. And I've I remember I go to an annual doctor for once a year. I used to have epilepsy, so I have to go to an appointment once a year. And her assistant, I saw her like a year ago. I went in this past May for an appointment, and I go, "Oh, how was that wedding last year? I know you were stressed about getting there in time." She's like, "How did you remember
Yeah,
that? That was a year ago." And I was like, "Well, we were talking about for 10 minutes, what your schedule was going to be for the day." And she's like, "I really can't believe you remembered that." And
yeah,
she started going into it with me and telling me about the wedding and then some other things going on. And she just kept being like, the fact you remembered that meant so much to her, because to everyone else, someone might ask her about it and then keep it moving. And I think sometimes it's remembering those things and actually taking the time to say, again, like we mentioned earlier, I hear you and it's important to you. So let's actually talk about it.
that's so true. When similar situations, I'll put it in my CRM so that I know I like all the as much information about a human being that I can. So this way you can have a more personal conversation.
And I think it just shows the ability as well, how much we all actually care for someone else, and it's not a give and take relationship, right? Because sometimes if you don't talk to someone on a regular basis, they start to go, okay, why are they reaching out? Do they want something? So
Yeah.
to be able to build those relationships and do those check-ins, demonstrate you're not here just to take. You want to give, you value that as well.
Yeah, it's so true. I was talking to a client, and last year I happened to go just knock on their door, and it was Girl Scout cookie time. So I bought the Girl Scout cookies, which I gave away immediately before eating them because they're so good. And I just texted her, "When is Girl Scout time? Please send me the link." And it's something that's very special to her and her three girls.
Yeah. Oh, let me tell you, you have a better power and resistance than me. I would have bought this Girl Scout cookies. Thin Mints, I get Thin Mints. That box is done very
On, I
quickly.
know. But you don't even think, like you're just eating them and eating it. All of a sudden, the sleeve is gone. I'm like, oh my God, I just ate like 1,000 calories of Thin Mints.
Yeah, they're definitely a kryptonite for me. And I recently learned, for anyone out there who loves at least Thin Mints, because I don't know about the other cookies, but during COVID, um, I got Thin Mints, and it was going towards, when Girl Scout cookies stopped selling, and my mom saw them at the grocery store, and she went to grab some last minute boxes because again, I down them pretty quickly. But then I start to go, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to have these for X amount of time. So we need to hoard them. And she was grabbing some Thin Mints, and this very sweet elderly woman went, looking at my mom buying them for me. And she goes, you could freeze them. And I was like, my mom's like, what are you talking about? She's like, yeah, just put it in the freezer. And then when you want to eat them, put them in the box in a Ziploc bag in the freezer, and they stay good. And she's like, trust me, I do it every year. And my mom is, oh God, now Olivia's gonna have a freezer full of Thin Mints.
Yeah.
But I did beta test it. I was like, now I'm kind of curious what this will taste like, and they taste pretty good.
Good.
Um,
Frozen? Oh, I'm sure they're fantastic. Or
yeah.
crushed in ice cream. Oh my gosh.
Now you just gave me another idea.
Little like, but these are like random acts of kindness. My old boss in the fashion industry, he always said retail is detail. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money, but it's the remembering, like you remembered this woman's the wedding, and those little things make a huge impact to people.
I think it's also the aspect of in such a busy time, right? And everyone has things going on in their lives. And we can all probably feel at one point or the other, whether it's in a day, a week, a month, that we're just numbers to people. And it's surface level, and how much do others really care? So to get that touch and be like, oh no, someone is caring, can make all the difference, and we might not even realize it. And so I always look at it as, I don't know how that's going to positively affect someone, but I'd rather be the positive effect than the negative effect. Granted, I mean, sometimes we all have to have a negative effect, right? Not everything can go perfectly, or we all have our days, but I think if we lead by trying to have a positive experience for someone else, we end up having a positive experience, and it can make all the difference.
And if you're screaming at someone, firstly, you don't get anywhere because nobody's helping you if you're screaming, but you also feel horrible at the end of that. You don't get the results you want, and you feel like such a yuck feeling that it's just better to take a breath, think,
Mm.
write, do whatever, scream before approaching another human being and being like mean and losing your temper. It's not perfect, but it's yuck.
Yeah. I recently had experience. I went to the pharmacy, bringing that up, right? I was at the pharmacy, and they bring over my medication, and it's more money than it was the time before. And like the time before that, it was less money. But I gave the increase the first time of new location we're at, different pharmacy, like all these possible variables where the price could change a little bit. So then when it increased again, 2 months later, I'm like, there's no way, right? So I'm standing there, and I'm trying to deal with the individual on it. And I could tell they don't know, right? So their counterparts trying to help them. And I was there for an hour on a
Oh
very
my gosh.
snowy day, and I'm getting frustrated, right? And in Alaska, the best pharmacy to go to is the Costco pharmacy. So I was in Costco, right? So there's a lot of stimuli already going on if you go to a Costco. A lot of different things going on around you. And now I'm like getting frustrated with this, and I'm trying to keep my calm. And my boyfriend comes up, and he's saying jokes to me to try to make me feel better. And he says
Oh,
something, and I just look at him, and I'm like, I love you, but no, just no. And he's like, okay, I'm gonna walk away. And I went up to him afterwards. I'm like, I'm sorry, but like I was so trying not to start screaming. Like my blood was just getting to that point that I knew that if you kept talking and like making jokes about the situation, I was just going to start screaming at someone, right? And I knew that was not the right time. So I needed to express that so that I could try to keep my composure. so that I didn't start screaming and getting all frustrated at the person who's trying to
Oh,
figure this out.
yeah, totally get that. And it's hard sometimes to take a breath and just not say a word because your instinct is to just sort of like scream, but it's so bad.
How do you handle when you get frustrated sometimes and you might be in front of clients or in front of your team? And like you said, it could be so hard sometimes taking that breath. How do you make sure you take that breath or get quiet instead of, you know, as we all do sometimes, that gut
Yes.
reaction?
I will often just either step away, like go to the restroom, go for a walk before continuing. If I'm in the office, I'll write an email to myself and vent to myself, but I'll never, and then send it to myself and then delete it. But I try to do, nobody's perfect, believe me, but I try to do my best to just take a breath, just step away. And then it doesn't feel sometimes as bad. Often it allows you the chance to figure out, like, okay, what's the plan B? How do we achieve this? Like looking at other things.
And that was one thing I recently experienced, and people looked at me and they're like, how were you able to pivot quickly? Right. And to give context, I recently launched a apparel company for US Coast Guard members, veterans, and families. And we were getting close to the launch, and these designs I had that a designer was taking from my drawings and making them what they now are, we weren't going to meet the deadline. And with this one person, they have an amazing client base, but there was so much going on with their clients, and they were trying to do me a favor and they wanted to be a part of this. But it was just like getting pushed. And I remember getting off the phone with them that day and just being like, we're so close. And the reason we're not going to be able to make the same impact and like launch the day we're supposed to launch is because of this, right? Like it's going to be this why the deliverable isn't there. And to me, like I was just so frustrated and annoyed because I was giving my all to it. And I'm like, I can't believe this is what's going to hold us up, right? As a planner too, you kind of I definitely plan for all of those things. So I'm like
Yes.
wanting to pull my hair out. And I just like you said, I was like, okay, let's go run the few errands I have to run. And I was with my boyfriend. And it was like it was a Saturday too. So I'm like, okay, what am I gonna do? And like, we go for a car ride to the store and it's very scenery. There's a lot of scenery here in Alaska for you to look at.
Yes.
So I'm just looking out the window the whole time. And we get to the store, and I said, just give me 1 minute. And I pick up the phone. And this, again, to your point, where relationships come in and you never know how something might come up. And I kept in contact with a marketer and designer who did stuff for the Achieving Success brand and podcast when I first launched it. And I kept every birthday, holidays, like we were saying earlier, kept in touch with him. And he was a very fast turnaround time, very great to work with. And I called him up and I said, Doran, this is where I'm at. I want to drop in a week. Can you take on this project? Like, this is what we're looking at. He's like, Olivia, I want to help you on this. We'll make it work. And he's like, just let me know if you need me to do this come Monday. Because again, it was Saturday. And I was like, I'll have a definite answer for you if I need your help come Monday. He was like, okay, just let me know. But like, green light on everything else. And I just needed to know someone could pick it up if I needed them to. And we get out of the car and he goes, the way you just pivoted that to make sure you had a scenario in place to make sure you met your own deadline without going down a deep rabbit hole was amazing to watch. And I was like, there's time where we need to take a step back and go, okay, what is in my control and what isn't in my control? And the thing that was in my control in that time is, okay, I can call on someone else. Let me start to solve the problem. So if Monday it's an issue, I know what the next steps are. I cannot control someone else delivering. And so I'm going to have to realize that, but I can control the options. We can go from there to still meet the deadline. And I think sometimes when we're going through those frustrations, we also have to go, what can I control and how can I control it? And what is completely out of my control?
It's actually, it's so true. In any interview, not interview, whenever I meet with clients, we talk about what I can control, what they can control, and what we both can't control. Because that is absolutely the truth in everything we do.
For you, as a client is starting to go, okay, I'm not comfortable with not having control, right? I don't like, and I don't mean me, I mean your client, where numbers and negotiations are going back and forth and they just want an answer now. How do you try to have those conversations when there could be nervousness in the air, frustration, just wanting answers to the unknown? And how do you really try to have those conversations?
We were strategic in the conversations, and we talk about the fact that sometimes things might take a little bit longer, but it will be to our best interest. We don't want to just come back right away. Maybe we'll let somebody sit for 2 days, which will create a more of a demand if we're selling a property, or if we're but on the converse, if we're buying a property, I will tell the client we need to make an offer now if we want it. And if we don't care, then we just wait and see. And those are rare, but they do happen. And it's always about what's most important for the client. If we do this, how will you feel? And sometimes they're like, I'm going to be devastated. I said, then we do this now. If they're like, it doesn't matter to me, then we'll do it later. But really understanding what's going to help their stress level and make them feel good.
And one thing you just brought up that I want to highlight before we start wrapping up for the day, which I can't believe we're close to being done, but as you mentioned, the approaches are different, whether you're buying or selling. How do you, flip between those two hats, especially if you might be buying and selling for a client?
That's some of the most stressful. I think especially if you're buying and selling, because the client could feel like they're going to be homeless, and you don't want to have them write a contract for something they're going to buy if we don't know that their property is going to move forward to sell. So that's probably the most stressful. And we always look at the scenarios of what if this is what will happen, so you are going to be safe. And we just put all of that out on the table. Open communication is the most important. Communicating in the manner that the client wants, not the communication that I may want. And that is the most important. And understanding what their pain points are, what their fears are, and being able to rest assured that they will not be homeless. We will do what we need to do to make sure that they're happy.
And for me, that's so refreshing as well to hear, because I have watched people who, went, they didn't need to sell. They went to an open house to go see a house, loved the house, ended up signing that realtor to then sell their house. And so like the realtor was the seller and buyer for the one person, the seller and buyer for they had the whole pot. Okay, the whole thing. And it was game time, and their contract was based off the sale of their home. So they could only get into the new home if the other home sold. And I remember being with them a few weeks before that deadline was like, okay, if the house doesn't sell by this date, you lose the house you want to move into. And the realtor sat there and said, the people potentially buying their home that they lived in then wanted, it was a sell as is home. And okay, everything was laid out, and the people buying that home were going to demo most of the house. So like there's certain aspects to it. But then they came back and was like, for the part they were going to demo, they were then asking for $40,000 in repairs. And I'm going, they're about to knock the whole thing down. Why do they want repair money? Like, what's going on? Like, you already told us you're demoing it. And I remember the realtor going back to her clients who were in this situation and going, I think you should just lower the price by $40,000. You know, you want them to buy so you could get in the new house, and was so much just trying to get the sale done that I was like, she already wanted, at this point, she had then lowered the price 2 times already, just so that in that 30-day window that their house would sell. And I was like, and now she's asking, just give them an extra 40,000 for stuff that was going to be demoed anyway. And I was like, where's the advocating for you? And this is where, like, my, as I call it, the boss bitch hat came on. And I was like, this is not right. This is not, like, these poor, again, more elderly people. And I'm like, no, no, no. Like, protective mode came on. And I was like, we're not doing this. And I texted the realtor back and I was like, it's a sell as is, like, here's the contract. This is what everyone signed before this. Little did she know I kind of had a legal background, so I can, like, actually talk to this contract. And then she came back and I was like, I fully have confidence in you that if this sale falls through because of this $40,000, you will go into your network and find a new client. And I think that's where people, whether it's in real estate or in other areas of business, we get lost in the middle of it sometimes, that then we just want to wrap a bow on it and call it a day, instead of going, how can I problem solve and make the client have the best experience, but also have the most stress-free experience too? Because a lot of times when we hire an expert in whichever area it might be, you're hiring them because they know what they're doing and they're supposed to lead you down the right path.
That's so true. And oftentimes, literally, a client just told me the other day that his previous realtor, and he switched to me because they just wanted the deal done. They didn't care about what was most important and the market and overpaying and all of those other things.
And I think and I'd love to get your opinion on this, but when we're dealing with someone's livelihood and their money that they earn, there's a different level of connectiveness. And I don't know the right word to say right now, but just like protection over that money too, of like, not want, every dollar counts to everyone, right? When push comes to shove, in order to live, we need the money in order to get that house we want or whatever it might be. So when we're in these life changing positions where, you have a big purchase like a house, they want to know someone's there listening and isn't just trying to say, just dump all the money into it. Well, you'll figure it out, because money is such something that has close ties to everyone. And we work so hard to get.
Exactly. And in whatever price range you're in for your property or anything for that matter, it's your money that you've earned, and it's all important to everybody.
Mhm. Melissa, how can people get in touch with you if they want to connect with you?
They could either call me at 305-984-7706. That's my direct phone number, or an email, melissaj@compass.com, or on LinkedIn. But I'm always here to help, and not even with real estate, just with anything that somebody might have an interest, we could probably find somebody to help them.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Melissa, for all of your insight today.
Thank you for having me. It was so fun.
It was fun, and I felt like we didn't even touch your philanthropic areas, which have so many interesting aspects to that. And I feel like we could have just kept talking for way longer. But you gave so much insight today and things to make us all think about. And a few of those key takeaways from today's conversation is it's important to listen. As Melissa mentioned earlier, you have to listen to really understand, what your client wants. They're feeling heard and validated. And sometimes they're not going to tell you the exact answer you're looking for. You have to be able to listen to say, okay, I could piece the pieces together to give them what they are looking for, as well as always defend the client on what they want. You want to say, I need to stand up for my client. I need to make sure my client is happy instead of going and standing with where the industry's at or what other people around you are doing. Because when you advocate for your clients, as Melissa said, is always the best outcome. And you're always putting your client first. And that's the right place to stand in any industry. As well as if you don't want to grow, you will become obsolete. I personally believe that, again, like I said, the one thing in life that is constant is change. And as Melissa said, we always need to be able and be willing to change, adapt, and learn. So really put yourself in the mindset of how can I continuously grow, as well as whatever you're learning, you should share. What kind of mindset do you want to be in? The abundance or the obsolete mindset? And as Melissa said, if you share it, you're helping everyone. You're not just helping yourself. As well as, I love how Melissa said every day she sets personal and professional goals for the day, because goals, we all think should be long-term things that we work towards. But if we have goals for two divisions, personal and professional, and we break it down to every day, we can work towards those, change them, adapt to them, and really continuously challenge ourselves. And I love this little rhyme that Melissa put in there, so I'm going to add it, is retail is detail. Whether it's retail or real estate or other services you're providing or even a product, when you look at the details, when you're able to communicate that, when you're able to hear what the other person is asking for, it's all in the detail. This was a great episode with our top-notch guest, Melissa Rubin. Thank you for listening and have a successful day.